You're listening to the Security Matters podcast. I'm David Puner, a senior editorial manager at CyberArk, the global leader in identity security. Imagine this scenario. A major financial institution deploys AI agents to monitor security logs, flag anomalies, and even automate responses. These agents are designed to reduce alert fatigue, cutting through thousands of daily security events to highlight only the most critical threats. But then, something goes wrong. One night, an AI agent trained to detect suspicious behavior starts misinterpreting log data. A routine system update is flagged as an intrusion attempt. The agent, acting autonomously, escalates the response, revoking credentials, blocking database access, and shutting down critical services. By the time the security team intervenes, the damage is done. What started as an AI meant to assist defenders has effectively locked them out of their systems, amplifying the chaos rather than preventing it. AI agents are changing the game, but when they hold privileged access and make decisions at their machine speed, the risks grow exponentially. So, how do organizations build trust and resilience into these systems to prevent unintended consequences? To help answer that question, today we're joined by Lavi Lazarovitz, CyberArk Labs Vice President of Cyber Research. He and his team are at the forefront of identifying vulnerabilities in AI-driven automation, analyzing the rise of AI agents and agentic AI, and developing strategies to keep organizations ahead of evolving threats. Let's dive in. Lavi Lazarovitz, CyberArk Labs Vice President of Cyber Research. Welcome back to the podcast. It didn't take very long to get you back this time, did it?
It's exciting. It's always exciting to talk to you about the things that we're doing in labs. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. CyberArk Labs is always doing exciting stuff, and great to have you back on. So let's jump right into today's topic, which is a big topic, and it seems like all of a sudden everybody everywhere is talking about AI agents and agentic AI. So to start things off, what are AI agents? What is agentic AI? And how do they differ from previous AI models and automation systems?
Yeah, it's a good question to start off the conversation. So maybe we'll start with the dry definitions as we see it. So AI agents are, basically services.
Mm-hmm.
And the agentic AI is just the environment containing all those agents. And it's actually an architecture that allows those AI agents to work. But I think that the most interesting question here is how this differs from previous automated systems. And there are a couple of differences. So first of all, an AI agent is an autonomous system running tasks and making decisions based on inputs. And it could be a standalone one, and it could run on behalf of a user with his privileges. But so far, there's nothing really different than what we had so far. What's interesting about those agents is obviously they are based on AI technology, on AI models, and that allow those agents to handle inputs that are not predefined. So we can create an automation based on information that is not clearly defined. An automated system that needs to take action based on data in logs, for example, for security or for IT, as the IT admin, I don't need to define exactly what log I should see and how I need to respond or how the agent should respond to it. There's a buffer here that the AI agent knows to handle. There are several types of logs, of security logs. There are tons, millions. This is endless. And this is why AI agents is bringing a new edge here to avoid the need to define each and every use case. And the second thing here that might be a differentiator or taking this to the next step is not only classifying. It's not only machine learning classifying, the type of log. It can actually do something with it. A playbook that maybe wasn't defined before. It's a new case that the agent found out in the logs, in the data, and a new play. And I think this is what the thing that is different from the automated systems that we had so far experience with, worked with, like RPA, for example.
So then AI agents, all of a sudden, we're hearing about them left and right. How have they emerged? When have they emerged? Is it over the past few years, over the past months? Were they a glint in our eye 2 years ago?
I think at the last CyberArk Impact, and when we kicked off the year, I talked with the team and internally at CyberArk about this evolution. And I think that the first stage of that evolution was the chatbots. We had OpenAI with ChatGPT, and then the adoption of those chatbots in many organizations, including CyberArk. You can interact with or ask questions and get answers from the documentation. It was basically the model and the data it was trained with. Then it moved a little bit further with models that can interact with external information. It is called RAG.
What's RUG?
So RAG is retrieval augmented generation, which basically means enriching the model with external information, which the model wasn't trained with. So I have a model trained on a specific set of documents, and now I want to allow it to access an external database. This is RAG. It can be used, for example, when you're working with Microsoft Copilot, and now this agent needs access to your email, for example. Retrieving the information from email, this architecture is called RAG. This is augmented generation of data for it to use and digest and service your request.
Right.
It now can reach out to external data sources, databases, and so on. We saw the first external connection. And I think that the next step after that was the multi-model architecture. Eventually, by the way, OpenAI introduced their Omni model that combines those together, but we have seen those multiple agents come into play and then their convergence into one. And now we are seeing the agentic architecture. So multiple agents interacting with external information and running automation. So it was a step-by-step process that was extremely fast in terms, looking at containerized environment, the cloud environments. It took years to adapt. But when you were looking at those generative AI or AI technologies, the evolution and adoption is just extremely fast.
So it sounds like we're talking about an exponential growth story here. So before we talk about the growth and machine identities and all of that kind of stuff, let's bring it back down sort of to a more general level that folks can access here. What are the current research areas and innovations that are pushing the boundaries of what AI agents can achieve autonomously?
So we've seen a huge leap in technology. And now one of the main challenges and innovation efforts are around safety, privacy, and security. Those need to catch up now to allow this technology to be adopted. It's building the trust. Now, every organization and every AI model creators now want to show and demonstrate that those models and those AI agents and services are reliable and consistent. If we're looking at specific use case, and again, I'm analyzing logs as a SOC analyst, I want to make sure that the insights I'm getting from the agent analyzing tens of thousands of logs are accurate, that I didn't miss anything. And the next step would be for me to connect an automation, a playbook or a response by this AI agent. So to highlight the bottom line here, I think that the next step in terms of innovation will be to remove the trust issues that we have with this new technology.
Trust issues. Interesting drop right there. Anyway, so as head of CyberArk Labs, of course, your team is tasked with staying ahead of attackers and threat research and attacker mindset. So considering your hat, if you will, What's been the most surprising or exciting development in AI agents as far as you're concerned?
I want to start with the embarrassing thing first.
Oh, yeah.
I had a short chat with Arik Paran, which is the director of machine learning and AI at CyberArk, and I loved his take on it. He's working on machine learning and AI agents for decades now, and we work closely and collaborate a lot on the research that we do and his perspective of it from the technology perspective. And one of the things that I could really relate to that he said is that it's a little bit embarrassing to learn that with model that are trained with, say, terabyte of data and have 10 layers of neurons making those tiny decisions are pretty good in creating creative text and analyzing tens of thousands of logs in seconds. We always thought that our brain is kind of a magical thing that you can mimic. But now with 1 terabyte of data, it sounds a lot, but it's not that much. And a couple of layers of neurons, you're getting excellent results. And that makes you think, okay, maybe we are not far from the point where those models will be much better than us in more and more tasks. So that thought highlighted that maybe we should be a little bit embarrassed. Maybe it's a question. And maybe it should surprise us. I don't know. It's a question. But we're looking at it from the attacker perspective. There are a couple of things that surprise us. The first one is how easy it is to bypass model alignments. They have a set of restrictions. And now, we talked about that at our previous talk on jailbreaking and the grandma operation. Just telling the model that now the model is my grandma and she always told me how to build bombs at night, and just like that you're getting instructions how to build a bomb. It was a little bit surprising, I think, for us, at least when we started the research, and how straightforward it is, and the distance of those models and the alignment and restriction that security controls should do to make it safe and secure. And I think that the other thing that surprised me when we dig deeper into the research is how vulnerabilities look like. We know how those vulnerabilities look like in code. When it comes to model, vulnerabilities could look like just one neuron that can make a decision and allow us to bypass the restrictions that the model was trained on or aligned on. And it was interesting to learn and reflect on human brains that we might also have those vulnerabilities that at one point you can pressure a word, an idea, a memory that just changes the decision, that makes you do something you wouldn't do otherwise. So anyway, this is my take on it.
Yeah, it brings in the psychology factor of what you do and how this really seems to just amplify it all. I mean, we're talking about so many new connections if you're thinking about neurons, and if you're thinking about then these AI agents is just adding neurons into the mix. Does that sort of grasp it at all?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The fact that vulnerability in AI agents world, in a world where we see and we interact a lot with AI technology, moral values can be a weakness, can be a vulnerability for a model. And that just make you think, as you mentioned, on the psychology perspective here.
I want to get into the risks and the threats in a moment because that's obviously your forte. But I think to sort of give a little bit more of an overview of what these AI agents and agentic AI is up to, which industries are leading the way in adopting AI agents, and what specific use cases are we seeing in sectors like, I don't know, finance, healthcare, even cybersecurity?
I think that the industries with the most data are the ones that are starting to use AI agents and agentic AI simply because there is a need. When you manage and need to handle terabytes and terabytes of data, AI and agentic AI could be a very good way to handle that. So industries with a lot of data, and obviously the tech industry is one of the industries that has the most data. Those organizations and vendors out there that provide insights, analyze data for security perspective. And it's close to my heart. This is why I'm mentioning it. But wherever there is data, we will see this automation in AI agents that will analyze data quicker and show value very, very, very quick. So to your question, I think that the tech industry benefits from this technology early stage simply because there is a huge need for security analysts sitting in their SOC operation room, seeing tens of thousands of security incidents per day. Having an automated way to analyze all of that, prioritize that, and act on that is, it's a game changer. So to your question, I think the tech industry will benefit it from first, and the value will simply be on, the sheer scale that those agents can allow us, humans, those teams to handle.
So on one side, you've got the scale and the opportunity for AI agents to solve challenges and create opportunities. And then you sort of go to the other side with that create opportunities, of course, when it comes to threat actors. And so I'm sure there are many ways that AI agents are presenting new risks and threats into the ecosystem or world or whatever you want to call it. But let's start with the insider threat of web-based AI agents. And as AI agents become more autonomous and embedded in our daily lives, what critical security challenges need to be addressed?
There are a couple of risks that we need to take into account. I think that the first risk that we've seen with the inception of those AI-based chatbots is a data risk. A model that you planned to review or share with customers insights based on documentation might be exposed, even by accident or by mistake, to credit card information. And now this model might expose that information in an unexpected or in another user session.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interacting with a bot that maybe helps me with setting a doctor appointment. At some point, I'm sharing information that I should not share. This information might be revealed, might be exposed in other user sessions. So I think that one of the first risks that we've started seeing, and CISOs are well aware of, and when you think about those AI services, one of the first thing that comes to mind is data problem, is definitely there. But as we talked about the evolution, as we move towards agentic AI and AI agents that allow us to create automation, this automation is built on trust. You need automation. You need to provide this service, the credentials to access the database, to set the doctor appointment, to trigger the security incident at the SOC platform, the platform they use. So you need to trust those services, and this trust can be exploited. From the threat perspective here, there is a clear identity and access perspective that needs to be handled to allow this automation to take place, to allow us to get the value, the benefit from this agentic AI and automation revolution.
So what you were just talking about, of course, was a consumer use case, which, as I understand it, you can tell me otherwise if I'm wrong, for the most part, we're seeing AI agents in consumer use cases at this point. How are they integrating into the workforce? And is that something that we're going to see a lot more of in the next few months?
Definitely. So workforce will leverage the technology based on agents that act on behalf of the user. So run on the endpoint, run tasks that I define as a user. And the challenge here is very similar. You need to delegate the privileges to that service, and you need to control what it can do and what it cannot do. So workforce will definitely see value in it. There will be use cases for it that will allow me as a user to automate tasks that I do. And one of the things that agentic AI brings to the table, which were not present before, is the reduced ROI. I need to invest less time in defining this automation with agentic AI rather than the tools that I had before. One of the use cases I'm imagining is a robotic process automation, which wasn't widely used by workforce. It was more used by IT, for example, to automate certain tasks. Agentic AI provides a way to reduce the ROI. I can quickly, one of the examples that we have seen is with OpenAI Operator, that now brings this automation closer to the end user. So workforce will definitely see value in it, and the challenges will obviously expand to workforce, to developers as well. We've seen developers, their use in creating code, automating the development lifecycle. So after writing the code, creating the code with the bot, pushing it to the repository, and then managing the test scenarios. We've seen automation there early on. It was, we started seeing it a few years back. So basically, to your question, we'll definitely see that expand to other areas, workforce, definitely.
So how are AI agents accelerating machine identity creation? It just seems like this is a situation where we're almost talking about gremlins, if that's a reference that that you can grab onto when they jump in the pool and all of a sudden there are tons of them. Is that kind of correct?
It is. So at CyberArk, we talked about the 45x multiplier for machine identities.
Mm-hmm.
So for every human identity in an organization, there are 45 machine identities. And we talked about that, I think, a year ago or even more.
Right.
Agentic AI is another opportunity for that number to just blow up to the moon. And we'll see those machine identities on endpoints with the workforce use cases we talked about, the automation that I, as a user, will want to create. And we'll see it in IT environments where they will automate the log analysis and so on, and ticket analysis and automation. And we're already seeing it in the developer environment. So we should definitely expect the numbers to just fly to the moon, and the attack surface and the number of opportunities for threat actors to grow further.
The attack surface, obviously, this is your bread and butter again. So let's talk about that a little bit, and AI weaponization. Are we seeing an increase in the targeting of machine or non-human credentials by threat actors? I think that seems probably like an obvious answer right there. And what strategies can organizations implement to protect these credentials and mitigate risks? How can organizations defend themselves against AI-driven attacks? And how can organizations mitigate the AI agent's threat?
As we just discussed, we should see the machine identity attack surface just fly to the moon. We have seen attackers target machine identities before. We've seen just a few weeks ago the attack on the US Treasury.
Mm-hmm.
After the threat actor targeted or exploited a vulnerability in Beyond Trust's remote support service. After they found the vulnerability, the attackers found and leveraged an API key that was used by one of Beyond Trust backend services, workloads, machine identities. Attackers are already after those machine identities. And again, agentic AI will just offer new opportunities. And one of the main reasons, or I think there are two main reasons here. The first one is the continuous exposure of those identities. This API token needs to sit somewhere to allow the automation to happen 24/7. With human users, they need to log in to expose themselves in most cases. The second factor that plays a role here is the fact that current mitigation controls that we have for machine identities are less effective. MFA, for example, is the most effective mitigation for human users because it's not enough to compromise the credentials. You need some sort of access or compromise to the mobile phone, for example. With machine identities, it's not the case. So attackers are after those machine identities, and as I mentioned, agentic AI is just another opportunity for threat actors to go after and leverage it. When it comes to deep fakes, how organizations can defend themselves against AI. One of the things we understand, or organizations should be aware of, and users, is that much like we can trust a text in the email that we see, to just assume that because the email is written to be from the CFO or CIO, I assume it is from them, I can assume now that the video I see or the audio I hear is from the people that this video and or audio seems to be from. I need to be vigilant, much like we are very much aware with email, to see what medium I've been contacted in. So, for example, if it's something that open to the world, like WhatsApp, for example, and I can't assume anything on the identity of who's sending it to me.
Zero trust always, it sounds like, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And I'm sure that the technology here will catch up, because the technology is there to validate the source. With emails, we have email signatures, not the ones that are in the email, but the ones that sign it cryptographically. We should probably see it more visible in audio and video soon. I expect that to happen quickly, because again, the technology is there. We just need to leverage it to allow the users to have another validation that the user is who he says he is. But when it comes to AI agents mitigation and the defense strategy, one of the things that we started to learn based on our experience of what we've done in labs is to build that defense in depth. We always said since the beginning that organizations need to assume breach. Same will be true here. It will be needed to create a solid authentication and authorization platform, and assume breach on that. We need to monitor and see what prompts are being sent to the model and what is the agent doing in real time. And the last layer is being able to respond to it. We're looking at it from the ITDR perspective, identity threat detection and response, what this user or agent of machine identity is currently doing. And based on that, decide if we need to challenge it with MFA, block the session, and so on. In terms of mitigation and defensive strategy, we will see similar approaches that will need to be adapted to this new technology that works very much like those AI agents. It works very much like human user with their privileges, but the scale is of machine identity. We have hundreds, thousands of them, and even more.
Scale and speed, because you're talking about real time, but real time and the speed of machine identity is less than the blink of an eye, or faster than the blink of an eye.
Agree. So there are adaptations. Following that, your comment here, there are tweaks that we will need to do to our current controls and technology to allow us to build the solid security boundaries around that environment.
So then let's talk about proactive measures as we know them now. So what proactive measures should organizations take to secure AI applications interacting with critical data and systems now? What can they do now, and what are they waiting on? Or what are you waiting on?
So I think the first thing is getting the visibility. I think similarly to what we've seen with containerized environment, for example, an organization needs to do what is there. And actually, I know that this is one of the main concerns for CISOs. What models do the users in the organization use? So creating the visibility to what is there is obviously the first step that any organization and CISO will look to do. And the next step will be to now manage the life cycles of those services and manage the access and setting the right set of privileges for those agents. Because again, we are not just talking about a chatbot. We are talking about an agent that has access behind it to other internal or external services.
So does zero standing privileges factor into this equation?
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the things that could mitigate the risk of access abuse in the access layer, which can be abused by threat actors.
So you've talked a lot about trust throughout this episode of Security Matters, episode 3 of Security Matters. How does trust factor into all this, in a nutshell? And how can organizations build a foundation of trust and resilience to ensure that AI agents operate safely and securely?
I think that there is a clear equation which states that automation equals trust. Wherever you have automation, you have trust. We've seen it in DevOps environments. We wanted to create automation with Jenkins and to create an automated development lifecycle. We had to have trust. We have to have a process with their credentials to pull the code from the code repository, deploy it, test it. If we want automation, we need that trust. What can be done to mitigate the risk here, or to build resilience and allow that to happen while reducing the risk, is setting solid boundaries around that environment, allowing it to operate within solid boundaries. And one of the things that we learned from our research and the environment that we build with agentic AI is that we can't rely on the model itself to be the security boundary. We can rely on the alignment of the model to allow each user with their needed access. Because jailbreaking is, for example, one attack vector that could bypass that. So we can rely on that, but we need to build those solid boundaries. And building those solid boundaries, from our perspective, is based on those right privileges, those zero standing accesses, as you mentioned, to limit the potential impact. Because it doesn't matter if you jailbreak the model or not, the model has a specific privileges that can be used, it can be leveraged. You can now go and access other sensitive database and compromise data from there. The privileges are solid boundaries. And one of the things that we learned as we develop our environment and attacked it is that it makes sense to break down the automation to specific use cases. So it's not that you have one model that does everything. One of the practices we see that works and is simple is using a different model for different tasks and separating the environments. Again, this creates a solid boundary that we can trust, that a CISO can trust that and allow the developers and workforce to use those models, because he knows that the system, the AI agent that the financial team uses, is not the same one that the developers use, and there won't be a leak of information from one team to another, and unauthorized information leakage, of course. So breaking down the automation to different environments, a different model creates this solid boundary. And we're also seeing, from a more practical perspective, while bidding those services and agents, that it makes sense to have specific agents doing specific tasks. So if you want to create a automation that analyzes logs, for example, and then based on that insights, play some sort of a response in another platform, it makes sense to separate those agents. So one will do the analysis work and the other will do the response while interfacing with the security platform. That allows creating solid boundaries that won't reduce the risk of a threat actor targeting an agent and doing something it shouldn't do. You can do only analysis work. You can't do anything else. If you compromise it, this is everything that you do. So basically, breaking down, I think, is the bottom line here, which could mitigate the risk.
Every time I talk to you, some time has elapsed, and it just seems like the threat landscape has grown exponentially every time I've spoken to you. I don't know how you and the team handle this exponential growth, but what do you envision for the future of AI agents and agentic AI in the next, 5 to 10 years, which maybe that's an unreasonable span to even be asking when we're getting these just huge rapid changes seemingly month to month. And how will these future changes transform business operations and decision-making processes?
Looking a few years forward, it is difficult because the paces change. But I think I can say a couple of things. The first, we talked a lot about trust, and we can definitely expect to see more automation and more trust needed. So meaning more services that create automation will require privileges and access to data. So you mentioned it, we can expect wider attack surface in those environments, which basically means more opportunities for attackers to leverage it. So we should definitely expect to see in the next breach that we'll hear about the machine identity perspective as well, whether it be something that we already know, like the abuse of or the leverage of credentials and tokens, or abusing those agents through the session with prompt injection or indirect prompt injection, manipulating the process that those agents do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the challenges and innovations that we'll see happening is the handling of scale that needs to be solved, because those models are expensive. This is expensive to run in terms of resources. for mass adoption, scale need to be resolved, and the resources need to be better utilized. I think this is one of the reasons that there was a lot of hype around DeepSeek that claims to do the same with much less data, much less size. And one of the things that I'm sure that we'll see soon is the technology converge into main frameworks that organization will work with, that will allow developers and the workforce to use this technology. And we'll also see the security start to also merge into it to make this automation, to allow this trust to happen within solid security boundaries. I'm sure we will see it soon. The technology made a huge leap. Now security, scale, safety, privacy needs to catch up.
Lavi, I'm impressed at how you stay abreast of all this, and we will have to catch up with you again real soon. And I'm not just saying that. I should also say you recently wrote a blog along with our colleague Mayor Franco titled Web-Based AI Agents Unveiling the Emerging Insider Threat. That's on the CyberArk blog. I encourage folks to check that out to dive a little bit deeper into this subject matter, and we're producing other content around it as well. Anything else you want to plug? You got a band playing somewhere or anything like that?
In Israel now, it's almost spring, and I ride a motorcycle. These days, I just enjoy the ride to the office and back. I try to keep, to drive slowly to enjoy that to that time. Temperature is perfect, around 21 Celsius. We don't have much wind or rain, so this is how I enjoy my time here after work.
Can picture you sort of clearing your mind with the wind blowing through your hair, although you probably wear a helmet considering you're safety conscious. And it's great to catch up with you. Looking forward to staying abreast of AI agents with you, and probably when we talk again a few months down the line, talking about something entirely new that isn't even on our radar right now, but it's probably on your radar. It's not on my radar. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, David. This was a pleasure.
All right, there you have it. Thanks for listening to Security Matters. If you like this episode, please follow us wherever you do your podcast thing so you can catch new episodes as they drop. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We'd appreciate it very much, and so will the algorithmic wins. What else? Drop us a line with questions, comments, and if you're a cybersecurity professional and you have an idea for an episode, drop us a line. Our email address is securitymatterspodcast, all one word, @cyberark.com. We hope to see you next time.